if you have people in the chapter who aren't living these values, it's so easy for that to affect the next man and think like, oh, well, you know, they're not living these values. Like, is this really what Teak is actually about?
You're listening to the Teak Nation podcast with Donnie Aldrich, where we strive to educate, inspire, and entertain you with tips and lessons from frauders and friends of TKE. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome back to the Teak Nation podcast. This is your first time and new host, Jason Lam. I'm stepping in for Donnie Aldrich. And today we have two special reoccurring guests, Chris Catizone and John Broadway. Today's episode is about values, both Teak values and values in general, and how your values impact your lives as leaders and young professionals. For those who don't know us already, why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves? If you guys want to start by saying your name, your Teak chapter, maybe something you did from the good old days, what you're doing now, and then what you're doing next. What's your next big thing? So, John, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Thank you. Yeah. So, as you said, John Broadway from the Fraters chapter at Long Beach State. Living over here in sunny Southern California. I'm actually pursuing a career in screenwriting. Currently working at a couple of different nonprofits one that works in like storytelling. It's called Road Trip Nation. Another one that works in like building economic base for underserved communities here in LA. And so, yeah, my next big thing is, always continuing to strive for personal development and using that to break into the film industry with the script. So I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. How's everyone doing? My name is Chris Catizone. I'm a graduate of the Xi Omega chapter of Teak at Virginia Tech. Currently living and working up in New York City doing valuation work for a finance firm called Grant Thornton. But it's exciting to be back on the show and talking with two of my good friends and fellow Leadership Academy graduates. Shout out to the class of 29. But yeah, very, very excited to be talking about values and, that whole value system, something I think is very important to our success in lives. So I'm excited to see where, things go. Moving forward, I'm just, happy to be here and, talking about things I care about. So.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And my name is Jason Lam. My chapter was Upsilon Sigma. I was the president for that chapter. Currently, I am a student pharmacist at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, continuing in my third year. And in the future, what I'm hoping to do next, hopefully own some pharmacies and grow with these guys. So you're probably wondering why we're all here today. As Chris mentioned, we're all tied to the Leadership Academy, but more importantly, we're all in a mastermind. And the story begin for that is, it wasn't on a cold Tuesday night, but it started on January 6th of 2018, and that was when my life changed forever. In 2017, I wanted to create a New Year's resolution, and I knew that those don't really go past January 3rd. I wanted to live my life every day with purpose, with the intent to better myself, but I really didn't know how. And I guess I just so happened to stumble across two really important things that changed my life. One of them is the BuzzFeed We Try CEO morning routines and night routines. And then the second one is Ed Milet's podcast, Maxed Out Goals Setting Strategies. And those two really combined made me do the unthinkable. I created a challenge for myself, and I knew that I needed somebody to hold me accountable. So I invited all my pledge brothers at the time, and it really just started from there. The challenge soon adopts its name to the CEO challenge, where we have a set of routines in the morning and night that we try and follow. And on top of that, with goals that we set for ourselves to improve ourselves. Some of these goals were hard, and some of them were called impossibly possible goals, but you shoot for stars and you land somewhere in the clouds. So the challenge really adopts itself into first a mindset and then into a lifestyle. And from there, I think as a group, we really took it into it becoming a mastermind. Really proud of where it's at. I don't think I'm satisfied yet, but we're not done and we're just getting started. So that's my story. And I'm interested on what's y'all's personal development journey up until this point and what it looks like.
Yeah, so mine actually somewhat coincided with yours, Jason, I guess. Well, the first thing that kicked it off for me was seeking to become a leader in TKE. And, I wasn't the best pledge. I just wasn't the best pledge, we'll say that, right? And so I knew I had to work really hard to get to a point where I could become a leader at TKE. And so that's where like my personal development journey really started, right? Was through TKE. And the part of that journey too was seeking to surround myself with people who are like-minded, right? Share the same values, the same goals, same mindset. And so it was just around the time where I started to really take that serious, or take that more serious in my postgraduate career, is around the time when you actually had reached out to me about the group, and when I got involved in 2018. So I feel like our personal development journeys really, like I said, coincided together during our postgraduate career, and it's awesome to see how it's continuing to develop through our mastermind group.
That's awesome. For me, I'd say it started when I was like very young. I've always been an athlete. I always had a competitive nature to myself. And, when I got to college, I didn't continue playing sports. And, I needed to find something to immerse myself in, to challenge myself in, and to become better at. So freshman year of school, I get involved with the fraternity, immediately try to get involved in different leadership opportunities. I served as Chryso, I served as Graham, I served as co-philanthropy chair. Those were all great experiences. And as I noted earlier, I had the opportunity to go to the Leadership Academy with both John and Jason. But it wasn't really until, like John, my post-grad, that I got involved in this whole mastermind, group and mindset. It was my first RLC, actually, after graduating in 2017. Man, I'm kind of feeling old. That Jason attended in New York, New Jersey. And, I was there working at one of the booths, and Jason and I, we hadn't probably caught up in 1 or 2 years since our academy days. And, we got to talking about the different things, the books that we read, the people we listen to, like Tim Ferriss, the, Grant Cardones of the world. And we realized, we had this mutual connection of get better. How can we, do more mindset? And Jason told me about this, the CEO challenge, as he coined it, and invited me to the group. And, I haven't looked back. It's been really an incredible journey that we've taken thus far.
Yeah, so with this incredible journey, what would you guys say has been either your favorite experience or your greatest takeaway since you've joined the mastermind?
Best experience, best takeaway. That's a little tough. I know I'm going to come up with a better answer after I'm done, but I think the one that sticks out to me the most is just a few months ago when we had a meeting in which you're always the moderator, Jason, the kind of guy, and then you took a seat out that week for whatever reason, and then it was just us three. It was just 3 other guys that got on. I remember during that time, I was feeling really down on myself. I just wasn't in the best place, like financially and just like mentally. And, because in this group, we really set this tone of just allowing ourselves to be fully authentic and vulnerable. I was able to share my struggles, and through that, I got so much positive feedback and affirmation. And I feel like since then, I've really been on a really good positive trajectory, actually. I just realized that. And so I think that's always one that sticks out to me the most, as far as like a positive experience I've gotten from here. And
yeah, John,
I want to share that quote that you shared earlier. It was
yeah. I was gonna say, whoever listened to the last podcast I was on knows I'm a big quote guy, and John hit the nail on the head. With the whole vulnerability thing. And, quote I love is, to share your weakness is to make yourself vulnerable, but to make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength. And I think that's like core of what we do in our mastermind group. It's like, we get on this and we talk about things that matter to us and whether we're accomplishing them or whether we're not. And sometimes, like John said, we put ourselves in a vulnerable state. We go through difficult things, but we've got each other to rely on and to hold us accountable, which ultimately makes us stronger. And, realigns us with what we're trying to accomplish and helping us ultimately achieve our goals. So
Yeah, definitely. You're talking about holding each other accountable. I think one of my favorite aspects of being in the group is being able to be slightly jealous of each other. Maybe jealous is not the right word, but seeing John writing all these articles, seeing Chris doing these 440 for 40 days, it's inspiring and keep the fire going for me. And so that's my favorite takeaway from that. And I think with the group, we're able to build on our values, build as a person. And I think right now would be a great transition to going back to our good old days for TKE values. So what do you guys remember about first hearing the words love, charity, and esteem? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, good question. And remembering, I guess, is key, because I feel like that's exactly what I had to do, that fall semester freshman year. I remember going through the new member process and, hearing love, charity, and esteem and the Declaration of Principles. And it was more something I just said because I felt like I needed to, and it's just because what we did. I associated everything with just TKE, right? Love your brother, hold your brother in high esteem and do charitable work with your brothers. I never really thought more into it until, I guess, as I progressed through my collegiate career and now even in my professional career. I don't know if you guys share the same sentiment with me there, but
100%. When you were just talking, it made me think about, because you talked about kind of your growth of how you view these values. And I share that as well too, because I think from there, for me, it moved to a point of, okay, I really value this. Actually, I really take this to heart, right? I'm going to try to embody this. And then that next iteration, sad to say, is like, okay, how true really is this to our chapter, right? And you try to look, for me, I was like, okay, I'm looking at other people to see how much this is reflected, right? To see how much stock there really is in this. And so analyzing that process myself, it kind of just reinforces that importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, right? Because if you have people in the chapter who aren't living these values, it's so easy for that to affect the next man who may not be as, independent-minded and think like, oh, well, they're not living these values. Like, is this really what TKE is actually about, or is it just fluff, right? So I think that's like a valuable thing. Like, that's been a valuable iteration of how I view these values. Is one, just, they're just words. Two, actually seeking to embody them. And then the third part is only trying to embody them if other people were. And then the fourth part is, no, just find other people who embody them and, use that as an iron sharpen iron type of thing, so that we're both holding each other accountable to these values. Another great example of that is just when I was on the podcast with Frater Moy, he shared an example or a story of this dude who was disparaging TKE very harshly online. And the way he engaged with this person that he didn't know at all was just him just saying, look, I know you're not part of your brother, but I'm going to attribute the TKE values to you because this is just who I am. And he handled with such grace. And seeing that just is always going to be in my head from henceforth as a reminder of okay, that's what embodying these values looks like, right?
Right. And I think that's the great thing about values, not just love, charity, and esteem, but whatever values you hold true, is that they're malleable. As you noted, I noted, they aren't, or they weren't what we thought they were when we first heard them, love, charity, and esteem. They've developed as we've progressed and had different life experiences. So that's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. John, you're saying whether they're just words or not. It didn't mean, at the time, it didn't really mean as much as it meant today, right? The words were just words. I didn't really take it into account what it meant. And, Chris, you're saying it's more than just the values, or more than just, those three words. I definitely agree. I think those words were the foundation of who I am today without even me knowing it. It was subconsciously building me.
What if you had to say one of those three, love, charity, esteem, that that you embody the most now, or I guess that you reflect on the most? What I don't know, either of you, what do you think it would be?
I know for sure for me it would be Esteem, just because as a young professional in the pharmacy world, that's just something, being able to be respectful and have respect is something that's highly, thought on. It's who you are in the pharmacy world. Pharmacy is a small world, and so your whatever you say will follow you wherever you go. So definitely for me, it's going to be Esteem.
Right. No, dude, I'm right there with you, man. Esteem that is respectful to the honest convictions of others and refrains from treading upon that which is sacred to spirit and conscience. Like, to me, that's the golden rule right there. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Forgive, understand. Don't be quick to judge. For me, every day I'm on the phone with dozens of different people. I'm interacting with a number of different people on the subway to work in the city. I'm interacting with different people, and people make mistakes and do things. But, the way I look at it is like, let somebody give you a reason not to, I guess, trust them or enjoy their presence. Like, try to find the best in everybody first before you judge, their actions and potential faults. I know, John, are you sharing the same thoughts as us with Esteem, or
Yeah, most definitely. It's funny because I recently just realized that like Esteem was at the heart of why I'm so intent on engaging in civil discourse. And it wasn't even a conscious thing. It was just when I analyzed why I value it so much, I realized Esteem was at the heart of it. But going back to your question though about which one do you, I guess, like identify with the most out of the three? And I think for me, it's love, because love is at the heart of them all. It's really the root and the foundation. I think I heard a quote, or maybe someone just randomly saying this on social media about like, if you're always guided by love, then you won't be led astray. Something like that. And so I think that's, if love's at the heart of everything that we do, or at the foundation of everything we do, then generally speaking, we're in a good place, right?
Yeah. That makes me think like the old, if you can't love yourself, how can you ever love anyone else? Like, I guess going back to what you said, it's like at the core, like, I guess you need to love yourself, know yourself before you can really dive into, I guess, esteem and charity.
Yeah.
And any other value for that matter. It definitely stems from that. So
you guys are talking about, loving yourself. How does somebody who's currently not, loving themselves right now, what steps can they take so that they can reach that point so that their values can be built on the love for themselves?
Oof. Good question, my friend.
That is a good question. That is the first step to loving yourself. Because you can't love someone else until you love yourself. So it's very important. But I think just being able to like forgive yourself and recognize that you're human, having, embodying, attributing that value of grace and mercy, not just others, but yourself. I think that's foundational to self-love, and then being able to take that to the next person.
I definitely agree with forgiving yourself, because one, sometimes people are just hard on themselves and it's so unnecessary. I'm not saying like you shouldn't be hard on yourself, because that's how you're going to be able to grow. But I think one of the biggest things is accepting who you are, and then go from there. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people that love you. I feel like sometimes it's somebody else's confidence in you that's kind of like the snowball effect to get you going and to, I guess, get out of that rut. So
yeah, for sure. I think when you surround yourself, sometimes you don't see the potential you have, but they do, right? And they can push you to that next level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a question for you guys over here. You guys got my mind kind of rolling. Wondering if you guys kind of have, a certain story to share, or a certain example to share of, when these TKE values or a certain value really just played a huge impact in your life and made a difference.
Story that these TKE values really play a difference. I will say for sure, one of the biggest things for me So my chapter was shut down because of recruitment, and being the president before it was shut down, it was kind of disheartening because now I don't have a home chapter to go to. Everybody wanted to take me in. But it was hard for me to not put all the blame on the current president, because I was a former recruitment chair and I knew how to recruit, and I was teaching these guys and they weren't able to deliver. And it made me frustrated. It made me not want to refrain from trading upon, putting the blame on them. And so just being able to accept they tried their best and, life moves on. I think that is for me, one of the biggest things that I was able to take in.
Yeah, and for me, it's the fact that the values that we as TKEs embody are not just limited to love, charity, and esteem, right? So I think of, there's unwritten values and rules even of being a brother. And, a big one that sticks out to me is accountability. I highly doubt I would be where I am today, professionally and personally, had it not been for my brothers who hold me accountable. You guys, especially, in our mastermind group, Jason alluded to it earlier. I've been doing a 4:40 a.m. wake up for 40 days in a row. And when I put it in our group chat, when I was pondering the idea, Jason was like, do it. No questions asked, no other filler, just do it. And if you don't do it, make a donation to a charity, of course, St. Jude. But that sense of accountability, it's stemming from something that was established in my undergrad, joining a brotherhood that is so valuable in so many different facets of life outside of just love, charity, and esteem. I think the list is endless in what we can all find, from being a part of this brotherhood.
So, we're talking about brotherhood. For a listener right now who is in a fraternity, but doesn't have that sense of connection with their brothers right now, what can they do so that they can get a sense of brotherhood, that sense of accountability? Because there are sometimes those that not necessarily ostracize themselves, but don't feel that connection that we, like us, have, right? So what can they do to get that connection?
One thing that actually really helped for me was to appreciate the commonalities that I have in the brothers and to build connections based off that. Previously, prior to joining TKE, I didn't have many like engineer friends, but there was a lot of engineers in TKE, and the people I previously didn't really, like I said, surround myself with, but I got along with them so well, right? And I think it was only through TKE and me being able to share this common goal, this common interest, this common thing with them, that I was able to make connections with people who I normally wouldn't have. And it wasn't just like engineers per se, but that was just like one example. And so, going to your question, I think it would behoove that person, right, who's looking to make strong connections with their brothers, is to, find ways to appreciate the common interests, common goals that they might share, and to build a connection based off that. And like one of the ways that I did that was through being very involved as a leader. And, these other leaders in TKE who I may not have had that much things in common with outside of TKE, but who I valued and appreciate so much because of what they brought to TKE, right? And really building them up in that respect and appreciating that helped me feel a lot closer to my chapter than I would have if I wasn't intentional about that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, while you're talking, one of our previous thoughts came back to me of just vulnerability, right? If you don't feel like you're necessarily having that connection with others, be vulnerable. I think back to my undergraduate days and when I was running for different e-board positions, people didn't know how much I cared about, our chapter until I got up in front of the room and was giving my speech to become Epi, which I then lost and, trickled down to running for Graham. But the fact that I was up there and showed how much I care, I think is what gave people a newfound, view of who I am, what I stand for, what matters to me, and whatnot. So again, we're hitting on the same point. Be vulnerable. With vulnerability comes strength. And it worked out very well for me. And I think the same would be true for, anybody else that might not be finding, that group, or a core group, for lack of a better phrase. And, if people are to judge for your vulnerability, then those, those are people you don't want to associate with. So you're helping yourself by doing that. Because the people who do care will reach out, will connect with you. And, I think that ultimately will help.
Yeah, Chris, you definitely brought up a good point. You said people don't know how much you actually care unless you're being vulnerable. I have a professor, and she said people don't know unless you tell them.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
So if you want to be if you want a resident position, or if you want a leadership position, tell people. So when people are aware, then they can either support you or don't support you, and then you can run with those who support you. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying, being vulnerable.
Exactly. I love that. So yeah, like all this talk that we've been having about, values and goals and our mastermind group and everything is really making me think about our commitment to TEAK and what we expect of ourselves. And even most recently, our expectation of excellence. And, both of you, I know we share very similar mindsets, but I think it would be enlightening for everybody else to hear your thoughts on the expectation of excellence and how does that transcend into other facets of your life. It's definitely near and dear to TEAK, but that expectation of excellence I see, emulating in all different aspects of my professional career now. So
yeah, I think it's ties in perfectly with our mastermind group, right? Because what are we all there for, right?
Right.
To be excellent, right? And again, going back to your note about the importance of accountability, that also is what the mastermind groups helps us reach that excellence, right? Through being accountable, right? To our brothers to meet this level of excellence, right? To always strive to improve and to allow ourselves to be vulnerable so that we can benefit from the strength that we actually get from that, right? So, I've been really glad that that's one of the things that I valued about the mastermind group so much is that it reinforces this expectation of excellence, right?
Right.
I definitely agree with excellence being where you're trying to better yourself, because I don't think people realize, I think trying to better yourself is a conscious action that you have to take. And I feel people don't pursue that excellence until there's a tilting point, something that triggers it, right? And so, yeah, being with excellence is definitely bettering yourself. And I guess I do want to circle back, what, as the TEAK model of building better men for a better world, obviously the word better is in there. What are y'all's thoughts on our model, and how has that played into who you are today?
Yeah, it all mushes together, I feel like, at the end of the day. There are underlying themes here, whether we realize it or not. But it's to me, it's like it's constantly striving for something that you believe in. When you believe in what you're doing, it warrants a persistent commitment to being better, to having higher expectations of yourself. And, everything we stand for as TEAKs, building men for a better world and having an expectation of excellence, it drives all of those points home. And it's not just in an undergraduate setting of, recruiting more people and raising a lot of money for St. Jude. It's the real world. I like to think of the things that we do and did as undergraduates manifest themselves into every facet of your professional career. For me, building myself as a better man, building others as better people, and expecting more is like, I see that in my day to day. We have this mastermind group. We talk about these books that we read, these videos that we watch of these people that are so wildly successful. And I parallel it to working out, right? You work out to feel a certain way, to look a certain way. we continually have these expectations for ourselves and those we surround ourselves with, and we read these books on personal development, and we have these difficult conversations because it keeps us in a certain mindset and frame to be better, to have higher expectations, to get to the next level. For me, something I've written on my desk at work is there is always another level. There is always more that can be done. There's no finish lines in life, and I think we embody that as an organization and then in life. And I love it. I think it's absolutely awesome. And it's so great to see that we push that stuff. I love listening to our CEO talk because he is so adamant about being better and doing more and unlocking potential. So it's great. It really is great. And, that's why I still volunteer, because it's 3 years out of school. I still find it in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, Chris, you're definitely preaching it. So you mentioned
it might be the espresso I had before this call that's got me super amped up right now. But no, I love it.
You mentioned persistent commitment. How does somebody who's listening right now who don't feel like they are being persistent in their commitment, trying to bury themselves, John or Chris, how do you guys think? What steps can they take so that they can be more committed into their pursuit of excellence?
So I think, so I'm gonna kind of answer like your previous question and then translate it into
Sure.
the one you have now, because when you're talking about how does TKE build better men for a better world, it honestly truly does come down to values, but more importantly than just like these values on paper, actually embodying them, right? Actually living them out. That is truly how we become better men for a better world. Because without living them out, then we're not bettering ourselves, right? And so when you truly embody values, it no longer becomes a conscious thing where it's like, oh, I'm going to apply love to this person. I'm going to apply charity here. I'm going to apply esteem here. They're just who you are, and you don't even realize that what you're doing, or you don't even realize that's the value that you were exhibiting until you think about it afterwards, right?
Right.
And so that's how people can go into the next question, Jason. That's how listeners can find a way to stay committed, right? Is to understand the importance that values like love, charity, and esteem, right, actually bring when fully embodied. Values like accountability, right? Values like determination, persistence, right? Finding out what's the true embodiment of them, right? And incorporating that into your daily life. And one of the ways in which you can do that is by connecting with others who are doing that, right? So that, iron sharpens iron, right? And we're allowing ourselves to continually be improved, not just through our own efforts and our own internal dialogue, but the ones that we're having with others who are seeking to grow with us.
Yeah, so you definitely talk about, incorporating it in your daily life. So I'm assuming when you talk about incorporating, you're talking about also like goals, right? Daily goals, lifetime goals. If somebody's listening and they don't know how to do that, where would they begin?
Oh, can I jump in?
Go for it.
For me, I parallel values as almost like synonymous as your word. What you say and what you tell people and what you do are very important. You say something, you do the opposite. Okay, I'm not going to trust you anymore. If you have core values, love, charity, and esteem, whatever it might be, honesty, integrity, and then you don't uphold those, again, you're devaluing who you are as an individual. So what I would encourage anyone and everyone to do is tell people to hold yourself accountable. I'll never forget the first marathon I ran. I haven't even run a 5K in my life, and I signed up for this marathon, right? And I'm like, okay, how the heck am I going to do this? I just,
Man, I was on the same boat.
Yeah, exactly. Jason joined me on this crazy endeavor, right? And how did we do it? We told people we were going to do it. I posted on social media relentlessly. Every single time I finished a workout, I would post a picture of me dripping in sweat. Every single time I, raised more money for the charity I was running for, I would post it, And when I didn't, people reached out to me. This is all on Instagram, and I didn't even know people were following my journey. I just kind of threw stuff up there just to, get it out there. And people took an invested interest, and that held me accountable. I had Jason to say, hey, did you hit your 15-mile run this weekend? And he had the same for me. And by telling people who you are, what you're going to do, I think that's what drives you to be successful. That's pressure, no pressure, no diamonds in my mind. And, again, vulnerability, by putting yourself out there is how you become successful, in my opinion.
Dude, that's so facts. I'll jump in real quick to say that, for my, pursuit in film industry, my first gig in the film industry, production assistant, was because I put myself out there on Facebook and said, hey, I had just come off like failing with the company, and I was like, honestly, I'm just gonna go for my dreams in the film industry. And if it wasn't for me just being honest about me just pivoting right after this failure and seeking something else, my friend would have never knew what I was doing, what I was about, and offered that position, which led to me to getting my first gig, which obviously led to more, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I think just to kind of wrap up what we were saying, man, it's all about, as far as like being able to keep that commitment up, right, is utilizing your brothers, like-minded people who share these values with you, and they're going to keep you going on that path. Because I know we've seen that in our mastermind group, right? One of us might like fall out for a little bit, and one of us reaches out, and boom, we're right back on.
There was a time where I was really slacking, and I remember you called me. You were like, dude, what the F? Like, what the heck's going on? Like, why aren't you involved, man? Like, you used to be doing this every single month, contributing every day. And I'll tell you, since that moment, I've definitely increased my, commitment to the group and to myself. And I think I've gotten a lot more out of it. And it's because of just one call, that you did. So it's all incredible points, all good points.
So you guys talk about being vulnerable. And I think that's a scary thing to start, or for someone to start, being able to be vulnerable with somebody. I think even in our own group, when we first started, we weren't really as open as we are now. If right now if somebody has a problem, they just put it in the group me, and then we all jump onto it like, shark in the water. But how would somebody, like when you're first being vulnerable, it's a scary thing. How can someone what are some steps someone can overcome that fear, that trepidation?
Real quick, hopefully you can hop in after this, Chris. I'm just gonna say it really goes back to that quote that you shared earlier, and like really understanding that, right? Can you say it one more time? I think you can obviously say it better than
me. Yeah, to share your weakness is to make yourself vulnerable, but to make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength.
Right. I think really understanding that, and the value that that is inherent in that, is the first step that people can take in being able to allow themselves to be vulnerable. And then as well as too, it goes back to surrounding yourself with like-minded people. Because if you're with people who share the same values with you, then I think it allows yourself to be more at ease in being vulnerable. Because you're like, okay, they're going to provide some value to me if I share this, right? Because I know how they operate. I know how they think. I know what they think is important.
Right. Shameless plug, being that this is the Teak podcast, and I feel like, we wouldn't even be having this conversation had it not been that we were all Leadership Academy graduates together. I'd love to, I guess, just try to bring things a little more full circle in the sense of like, how has being a brother of this organization, really helped and transpired into where you guys are today? Small example or anything. I mean, because I thought there are so many parallels.
Definitely. So before joining Teak, I was a freshman, didn't really care about school life, just partying on Sundays, having class at 8 o'clock the next morning, stuff like that.
Vicious cycle.
And joining Teak, I think the biggest difference, And for listeners, I highly recommend is going to those national conferences, going to those regional conferences. Those are things that was a threshold for me that made me into a different person. I mean, my T chapter was good and all, but being able to see like-minded people throughout the nation is a completely different feel, atmosphere, especially like in the Leadership Academy. Like, I mean, 3 of us are all from the Leadership Academy, and hopefully we'll be taking on some more into the group, but just, it built me I am who I am today because of Tau Kappa Epsilon, the values that I learned from it, the skills I learned, interview skills I learned from it from a regional leadership conference. So all in all, I mean, first of all, this group wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Tau Kappa Epsilon, right? I wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't have wanted more. And
we wouldn't have known each other.
Yeah, we wouldn't have known each other. But yeah, I mean, it built me who I am today.
Yeah, I definitely echo all of those same thoughts. So
yeah, and I honestly I probably couldn't even fully express how it has impacted me. I think I alluded to it earlier, when I talked about how TKE was the impetus for me to begin to, employ a intentionality with personal development, right? I was a little bit aimless before TKE, and TKE made me very much more specifically driven towards certain goals, right?
Right.
There's a lot of that intrapersonal, I guess maybe I should say, value that is brought into me, and then you talk about like the interpersonal value and just the value that I've gotten from learning from my brothers and from other TKEs. There's one thing that a TKE said to me, and this was someone that an alumni of our chapter, alumni of a different chapter actually, who I just randomly knew that I wanted to get into film, and connected me with this individual who was from his chapter, and he was just sharing me all this insider knowledge or like wisdom he had about, and like advice on how to get into film. And one thing he said that stuck with me so much, really helps me get one of my first jobs in the film industry, which was a script reader, reading scripts, which is like perfect for someone who wants to become a writer.
Right.
He told me, he's like, in the entertainment industry, you got to fake it till you make it. And I didn't even understand the value that had until I really employed it in my attempt to get this job, which I ended up getting. And the value of it's been just immense. So there's certain things that I can think about and point to, like how it's been super valuable. But I think it honestly goes even bigger than that, because it's just been something that's so integral to my life.
Right.
And it impacted so much.
Absolutely.
And John, you were talking about how you met the alumni from another chapter. Has that networking, did you learn networking skills from being in TKE, or was that just something that you already had in you and developed?
Yeah, I mean, networking, I think that's something that always been a subconscious inclination of mine, but and TKE just allowed me to have a very valuable outlet for that, right? Because it was something that was very enticing to me when I was choosing to rush a fraternity, the networking opportunities that it would provide. So for others, I think it can be a great way to instill in them that the value of networking, or like the intentionality of networking. Or for people like myself who already had it, it can just be that valuable outlet for it, or both to some people, right?
And so how has networking play a part in your professional career? I know, John, you mentioned, but Chris, has that played in your professional career in the finance world?
Funny, I feel like after you graduate, and obviously fraternity for life, but it I'm trying to think of how I want to articulate this. It doesn't necessarily become TKE versus Sigma Chi versus Sigma Nu. It becomes, oh, you were involved in Greek life. And then you boil that down to, as a member of Greek life, I understand there are certain things that you value because you were in Greek life. There's certain aspects, traits, characteristics about you that I can already deduce just because you're involved in Greek life. You're a social person, you're a hardworking person, you know how to balance, work and play, right? And, even my first job out of school, I remember vividly one of my interviews, we ended up talking about our fraternity experience. It was another Virginia Tech alumni that was interviewing me, but he wasn't in TKE, he was in whatever fraternity it was, but he understood, what we did. And, I think that was probably what ultimately helped me get my job, having that mutual connection and, understanding of each other. And I think it's something that we should acknowledge is like, none of us are perfect, right? We talk about these values, and I think that they are viewed in this, this light of perfection, right? But as social beings, we also value, the social aspect of being in a fraternity just as much as we value personal development. And I think, what TKE has helped me find that now transcends into my personal life is the value of balance, of being able to balance that social aspect of being, a professional, going out, for casual drinks after work, and also valuing hard work to get stuff done. And I learned that in my undergrad when I was serving as treasurer and co-philanthropy chair and taking 7 classes a semester. It's hard work and balance. And I don't think I would have had that had it not been for my involvement, in TKE.
So you're talking about how outside of post-grad, it's not a fraternity against fraternity. It's really, we're a collective Greek value. And you're talking about how getting a job interview and being able to talk about Greek values. I'll definitely, when you're saying that, it reminded me of getting my job as a resident assistant. My boss at the time, he was in Greek, and that's one of the first things we talked about. He saw it on my resume, and he was like, "Oh, you're in a fraternity." And then because he had his best friends were in Talk About Epsilon also, and so we instantly connected.
There we go.
And I definitely was resonating with you on that. And even in post-grad, in pharmacy school, being a part of fraternity, I always try to recruit people, try to tell people, hey, you really need to go and be a part of organizations, be a part of fraternity, because that's where you're going to meet people. It's not what you know, but who you know, right?
Right.
And so being able to stick your hand out and introduce yourself, I think is one of it's easier to do if you already have something in connection. And so I guess I'm interested because you guys are really outgoing social people. For somebody who's not, who's not good at networking, is completely terrified of going to conferences. Because I have friends like that. Classmates like that, and they're like, Jason, how do you do that? So my question to you guys is, what are some tips in terms of networking that you can provide to somebody who's listening right now that's completely afraid of going out and talking to somebody?
That's a good question.
It is a great question, and I would love to answer that. One thing that I always told my guys when I was president of our chapter was to understand that when it comes to the Greek system, we're all different branches on the same tree, right? So don't allow these different fraternities to keep us from connecting with others, right? Because we all come from that same root, right? In terms of like my tree metaphor. And so I parlay that into networking, right? I think one of the best ways to operate within networking is to operate off of commonalities, right? So for example, you guys are in the same place at the same time, probably for a similar reason, right? So, talk about what brings you here, right? What interests you in being here? What interests do you have, right? And then once you find things that you share, pull on that thread, right? See what lies beneath, and see what more you guys have in common, what common interests you guys have. And that will lead to ways in which you guys can provide value to each other, which is ultimately what true networking is about, is two parties coming together, providing value to one another. I think there's a misconception that networking is all about what you can get and what's for you.
Two-way street.
Networking is about not only seeking value from others, but seeking to provide value to others, right? Whether it be through the knowledge that you have, the connections that you have, the encouragement that you can give them, the whatever it may be, right? That is very important. So networking is operating off of seeking commonalities, building a conversation around those, and always seeking to provide value to who you're networking with, as well as being able to glean value from others.
There's a quote that I love is, the more you give, the more you receive. And that definitely, John, you hit the nail on that quote.
That's what networking is all about.
What about you, Chris? What is a good tip that you could give somebody listening? Because I know you're an extremely social guy.
Yeah, and I know your initial question was more geared toward people who I guess are a little more hesitant about the whole networking thing. And yeah, I say just be the best at what you do. And I know that's probably a bold assertion, but the way I look at it is like, if you are incredibly good at whatever you do, you kind of get that connotation of being that guy, right? If you're an incredible coder or incredible with graphic design, you don't necessarily need to go out and, meet somebody to, I guess, network. People will think of you that you are that guy, oh, I need somebody to do my healthcare marketing, to me, Jason, you come to mind. You've got your own, marketing company, marketing agency, right? So, just by the nature of being good at something, will, in a sense, be networking, I guess, networking for you in a sense, yeah. So be good at what you do, and like John said, just to echo his point, is find commonalities. If you're at a work event, nobody wants to be talking about work. They want to be talking about their family, their kids, what they're doing over the weekend. So find those commonalities and talk about those. Talk about the things that make you comfortable. So
yeah, I think you brought up a good point. I'm sorry, just real quick, because I love that point. Is also showing interest in others is a very important part of networking. You can't go to a networking event just seeking to talk about what you want and what's great about you and what you're doing. Like, sure, find ways to throw that in within the context of the conversation, but you have to have a genuine interest in other people, right? You have to actually want to know what about this person is interesting, and what about this person you guys have in common, or what about this person do they do in their spare time, and why they do certain things, right? You have to have that curiosity, or to Kobe. You have to have that curiosity about people to establish these real connections, and to be able to benefit from networking.
Right. Definitely love that. You're talking about being curious, playing your strengths. I definitely agree with all of that. I think also I think for me, especially in the pharmacy world, there's a lot of big heads, like leaders. And so it's intimidating for a lot of people to go up and talk to them. But I think one of the biggest things that people don't realize is that they're just people. They're just normal people trying to live their everyday lives. They just so happen to hold a title, and you just can't be afraid of something like that. And so, yeah, I definitely love all those tips that you guys gave.
So yeah, I feel like we're all on the same page in the sense that TKE has played a very integral role in our success and shaping and building who we are today. But Jason, I know you talked about it in the beginning of this podcast, but I'd love for you to just kind of re-hit on what the Mastermind group is, and what exactly we do, and how somebody that might be interested in starting one might be able to go about doing so. I think that might be very advantageous for our listeners.
Yeah, so just to recap, the Mastermind is a collective group of people who honestly just want to better themselves by setting goals and by accountability. And that's how we really grew into that Mastermind mindset. Honestly, and it's not a mindset anymore, it's a lifestyle, because you're living it every single day. And so someone who's interested, inspired by what we're doing, for them to go out and do something like that, it's definitely plausible. Start small, then go big, right? start on yourself and then recruit other people, because just like you guys have mentioned, it's all about providing value to other people. And I think that's, for me, one of the biggest things is I'm worried that I'm slacking behind, that I'm not giving the values that, or the quality of value that you guys would want. And so just like Chris says, build your strengths first. For me, it's, I'm in marketing, I'm in healthcare. That's my strength. You know, Chris is in finance, John is in media. And so, and all our other guys, you know, tech, forensic science, like we're all bringing something to the table. And once you have something, once you can bring something to the table, then you can sit at the round table. And
there we go.
And so, someone who's interested, you know, if you're a teak and you like the Leadership Academy, definitely you can hit us up. Also, I mean, we're always looking for high aspiring people. And I think that's one of the things they can do. And maybe John, you can also put in some words on this.
Yeah. So, you know, to tie it into the discussion of values, I think what's fundamental to personal growth, whether we realize it or not, is a commitment to certain values, right? Whether that be dedication, you know, whether that be accountability, whether that be love, you know, ourselves and others. And so I think, you know, for listeners out there, I would encourage them to really look at, you know, the values that they want to embody in their life as they seek to grow and develop, and be intentional about creating a group of people around them that are going to help them embody that, right? Who are going to hold them accountable to embody that. They're going to reaffirm them and encourage them as they embody that and use those values in their lives to continue to improve. So that's what I guess my little point of advice I would give listeners out there about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You know, with the Mastermind, we're always trying to improve ourselves. And so we're reading a lot of books. And you guys know this question was going to come from somebody who loves reading books. What would you recommend is your favorite book and why?
Oof. Very good question.
Favorite? I'm horrible at questions. I hope you.
I'd say first one. I'd say my most gifted book is probably Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And this guy survives the Holocaust. And real quick, in the book, he talks about finding purpose in life, right? So this guy gets taken to a concentration camp, and he talks about how surviving that experience wouldn't have been possible had he not found purpose in life. And, you know, it's a book I always crack open whenever sometimes I feel lost in my ways or don't know what I'm, you know, doing with my life. I'll read that and try to remember, you know, find purpose, find your passion, and remember that, you know, you could have everything in life taken away from you, but nobody can ever take away the way that you view a situation that you're in. And that's one of the big points that he hits on in his book, and absolutely love it. Real short book, highly recommend it.
John, what would you say is your favorite book?
Yeah, like I said, I'm horrible at favorite questions, but I'm going to go on this concept or on this theme of teak and mention a book that one of my little brothers.
Teak guy?
One of my teak little brothers gave to me to read. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie, classic.
I know that like throws a lot of people off. It's not just about getting friends, because if we're in teak, right, I'm sure we'll have friends, but it's more specifically speaking to how to how to develop leadership characteristics that people can follow, right? Or that will allow people to be more inclined to follow you. So it's a great book on leadership, and a lot of the tools or a lot of the lessons in there center around values, and also will help support people who are seeking to learn how to be better networkers. There's a lot of good lessons in there for that. So it's a classic. A lot of people read it, and I would definitely encourage others to as well.
For sure. So you were talking about leadership books. I'm looking right now at my stack of books. Even though I asked the question, I don't have an answer to that. But I will say one of my favorite leadership books that I just recently read is Extreme Ownership by Jocko. He definitely highlights different types of leadership style in the Navy SEAL and how it can be applicable in companies all around the world. And so I definitely appreciate you guys giving your favorite books. We talk about values. We talk about how TKE values has built you as a person, how the Mastermind has built you as a person. And we're all trying to strive for success. And so my final question before we close out today is, what's your definition of success?
Oh, man.
How about you, Chris?
I'm going back. I'm thinking of a little bit of Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson, I believe, said it. How does it go? To laugh often and much, to win the respect of the intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the beauty in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know what one life has breathed easier because you lived here, that is to have succeeded.
Oh man, that was good. I can't follow that up.
I may have butchered that, but I'm pretty sure that's it.
No, that's great. I don't want to follow that up because that was just too perfect. But he definitely, yeah. I'm just gonna second that.
I think for me, definition of success is just being the best version you are today. Being the best version you are compared to yesterday. I think if you can take incremental steps, then that's the route of success. But before we close out, where can our listeners who are listening right now can follow you and see where your journey goes on?
Oh, yeah. Just search me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Always happy to connect with people.
Yeah, same here. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook as John Broadway, or you can also check out my website, johnbroadway.me. I have a newsletter. You can sign up for my newsletter there where I send bi-weekly content, articles, and videos just with like empowering content. So that's one of the ways people can connect with me.
For sure. And then for me, at The Real Jason Lam, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and website, www.therealjasonlam. But so Chris and John.
Call that a podcast. It's a pleasure catching up with you guys. As always, yeah. I'm sure we can talk for hours, but I'm sure everyone listening now would stop listening after a few hours. So.
Yeah. So thank you, John and Chris, for being on TKE Nation podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. See you.
Take it easy, all.